Wonderful people, let's continue. In my last video, I went further to present to us the facts about the commandments, the 10 commandments. We are continuing today by presenting more facts about that 10 commandments by saying that these commandments are not the only commandments of Moses, as I have earlier said, that is the 10. We have 203 others, and it has to do with the Shabbat, the Passover, and other things, as well as personal commandments given to him before the 10 on Sinai. There has been a law that Moses received, but it's not inclusive on that very 10 before he came to Mount Sinai and they received it. For instance, when they were leaving Egypt, when they crossed the Red Sea, there were instructions, laws God gave to them. We will talk about that later when we begin to dissect the components of these laws. Now, if we look at that very commandments, we discover that the 203 others were not even the only that existed. There were what we call additional laws that finally, in summary, the laws of Moses were 2,713 in number. Even the ones that has to do with the way we treat animals, the way we treat even the trees around us, everything. By the time we begin to pick those laws one after the other, we know the reason why it was given and the essence of that to our existence. Another point we need to know about the 10 Commandments is that the 10 Commandments were called the covenant because they were the basis of the entire contract between God and Israel at Sinai. In covenant, you have an agreement between the subject and the subordinate. There is an agreement that is existing between God, the subject, and the subordinate, who are his people, Israelites. That very agreement, that is covenant, is an agreement, only that covenant has a blood that empowers it. You can't call it a covenant not until blood is involved. Now, this particular 10 commandments is the basis of that very contract between God and his people, the Jewish nation. If we look further, we will discover that in the book of Exodus chapter number 34 verse number 28, and also Deuteronomy chapter number 4 and verse number 13, it served as a basis in which God will release his blessings upon the people. So they were not the entirety of the law of God and Moses, just the first part of the contract spoken audibly by God. So God added no more audibly. That is confirmed in Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse number 22. Not because his laws were ended, but because Israel begged not to hear his voice anymore, lest they die. If you read the book of Deuteronomy chapter 5, and verse number 23 and to verse number 29, which was later referred to by the author of the Hebrews, in Hebrews chapter number 12 and verse number 18 to 21, you discover that when they were hearing the voice of the Lord, dishing out the commandments, a time came when they become highly terrified and say, no, we don't want to hear these words again. And that brought to an abrupt stop of the release of that very commandments. And it ended in 10. That's why today people used to make a lot of noise about the 10 commandments as if it is comprehensive and holistic. No, it wasn't comprehensive and holistic. There are many other laws that they needed to hear. That was why when there was an abrupt stop to that particular release of the law at Mount Sinai. God now said, Moses, I invite you to my abode. Come up. And Moses went up there, stayed for 40 days. In his stay in the mountain with God for 40 days, he received the 10 commandments. That is the first movement. When he went up there, stayed for 40 days, coming back with the 10 commandments written on the 2 tablets. Why 2 tablets? 2 tablets because one tablet contains the laws that are God to man relationship, that regulates God and to man relationship, or human divine relationship. Then the other tablet contains the law that that guides human to human relationship, what we call interpersonal relationship. But when Moses came down from the mount, he, out of anger, having seen that the Israelites have decided to worship a golden calf as Aaron has helped them, he came down in anger and broke that 2 tablets. That was a disaster. But look at the point we are making. What he came back with was 10 commandments, 5 on one tablet and 5 on the other tablets. He now went back to the mountain again. He stayed in the mountain and received not only 10 commandments this time around, but a whole body of laws. And that was the one after he stayed in mountain, after which he came back, and his face was shining and glowing that the people cannot behold his face. They have to cover his face with a veil for them to interact with Moses. That was the particular tour in which he came back and carved the body of the law that are not 10 in number. But the first one he came back with only 10 laws written down. That he came back with it was when it was written down. But that 10 was released through God's audible voice in the Mount Sinai. Having said this, we want to establish it as a fact that that law, that is the 10 commandment, is not comprehensive, is not holistic. That is why we have up to 2,713 laws. And that is the one that is comprehensive and all-encompassing. As you are following me to this point, you may think that we are wasting time. We are laying a very solid foundation that will help us understand what we say in years to come. Because we have just started a journey that will open our eyes to see why the global scene today is in trouble. We will see why many nations of the world are in crisis. We will see why the body of Christ is not what Christ designed it to be. These are the things we'll see. So that's why we are being thorough at this stage, to lay a right foundation to the understanding of the role laws play in running of the entire universe, both the heaven and the earth. Having said this, I want to say thank you for watching to this moment. I remain Pastor Elisha, the reformer with a difference and a rising voice in Africa.